Welcome to the LP Podcast in the USA Prime East Texas studio. Don't forget, like and subscribe.
The LP Podcast would like to thank its sponsors, Against the Grain, The Taco Shop in Frankston, Bar C, and Kneading Hands Massage. Welcome back to the LP Podcast. We're here today with Mike Harper, the DJ from KVNE, if you've ever listened to it, and Mornings with Mike and Carrie, that's him.
Good afternoon, everyone.
My name's Aaron Cook. I'm your host, and over there is Colton. He's my co-host, and over here, the newest one on the podcast, Brynlee.
Woohoo!
So we're just going to kind of jump right into it. So we have Mike Harper. So just how are you doing today?
I'm really well. This is exciting for me. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you here. So we'll just kind of get started. So where did you grow up?
Grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, extreme north from here, about 1,000 miles. Yeah, till I was 22 and moved to Shreveport, worked there in the 80s, and I've been in the Tyler area since 1990. There's the life story.
Wow, and Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, right.
Yeah, that's a cool town.
Well, it is. If you like baseball, football, those you can certainly get it there. Went to public schools there and grew up, made a lot of friends, and got married and moved south.
Wow. So you were there for a decent bit of time. So they're the Reds, right? You a Reds fan?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. Yeah, it's a sad year for them, but it usually is. I mean, how often are you going to win the whole thing? Ask the Rangers. They finally did it last year. But yeah, it's just baseball is kind of a fever for me, and so it was a great way to grow up. Basically, my whole childhood and teen years.
Yeah, right by the stadium.
Yeah, not too far. Too far from the stadium. Back in the day, we used to be able to go down there and just show up like in the ninth inning, and you could just walk right in. And of course, tickets were a lot cheaper back then too, but it was much more free to come and go. Just get a cheap seat somewhere.
Yeah. Now you can't do that. Now you got to go through security and all the whole process.
A lot of forms have to be filled out these days.
Yeah.
It's a different thing.
So tell us about your family, Mike.
I grew up in a family of five, fourth of five, mom and dad, and two older brothers, two sisters, one older, one younger. And so a loving family, not a Christian family per se, although we were believers, but there wasn't really no church going to speak of. It was more of an occasional thing. I had some great grandparents. My grandparents were a big influence and would pick me up, take me to church a lot. I mean, I didn't go all the time, but that was my experience there. And then as I got older, I had friends that were in church. And like if I had a girlfriend or something, I'd go to church with her, or I'd join the softball team. So I had some church in. But by and large, it was a secular family, hardworking, a lot of fun. I had a lot of friends, and it was Ohio, man. It was just Ohio.
Yeah, and that's kind of a cool state. So did you go to like a big high school or anything?
Pretty big, about 600 in my graduating class. I think I was in the third, fifth, not quite in the top half. But it was a growing area, I suppose it still is. Known for its chili. There's a lot of beer breweries there. It's a German town by and large. A lot of German names if you look up the Cincinnati Yellow Pages. Do they still have Yellow Pages? Probably not. The phone book there.
Yeah.
So you say that your family wasn't really churchy Christians. Y'all went, but it wasn't y'all's thing. Right. How did you become a Christian then if you weren't, like you grew up with it, but you didn't, it wasn't like day to day?
Yeah. You know how you have to kind of come to a point of decision, right? So to accept Christ and make him top of your life. Well, I knew about Jesus, but just didn't really know him personally, is the way they often say it. And by the time I was a young adult and well into my 20s, I had developed quite a few bad habits. I was a substance abuser and was becoming a problem. And I was already wife and family, and I was searching. I was sad and didn't know it. And a guy at work, I worked at General Motors in Shreveport, kept following me around and asking me questions about church. And I was going to church sometimes, still that kind of thing. And he said, well, if you died and went to heaven, or if you died, would you be sure you were going to heaven? And I didn't really know that question. I wasn't familiar with that. And I said, well, how can you really know? Nobody really knows. He said, oh, you can know. And he explained to me that you ask Jesus into your heart, and if you ask him to forgive your sins, and he'll give you a place in heaven. One day you'll go to heaven. You can know it. And after a long series of conversations, I worked at the General Motors assembly line plant. And he would talk to me on our breaks and stuff. And he was a friendly guy. We'd talk sports and we'd talk family and stuff. And he finally said, we can just pray right now and you can accept Christ if you're ready to do it. And I thought, you know what? The way I'm doing it isn't working. So let's do this. So we prayed. He led me through the prayer. I asked Jesus into my heart. And I honestly wasn't really sure what I was doing, except I knew I wanted something better. And I wanted to believe. And I opened my eyes, and I thought everything was going to be like bright and shiny, and like everything would be angelic. But it was the same. It was the same old dirty assembly plant, the same old ugly guys I worked with, and everything. Nothing really changed on the outside, but it was something different on the inside, and it took some time. And with a few weeks / months, slowly I began to understand who Christ was and what his purpose was in my life. And the guy who led me to Christ discipled me as well. He'd bring me literature and little pamphlets and things, and he'd ask me questions, and he kind of walked me through it. And with time, I joined a church, and it went from there. I did a lot of time in ministry, children's ministry, youth ministry through the years, music ministry, drama. I got involved in a lot of different ways, and God has allowed me to be a part of a lot of different ways to share him, and the radio station is the culmination of that, to be able to do that every day and talk about the Lord and have fun doing it.
So, like, that dude, he was a big part in your life. He helped you a lot. Like, he made a big impact on you.
Yeah.
And so, like, when you're a kid, you have, like, a hero or something growing up. Did you have any heroes growing up that made an impact on you?
Yeah. Outside of the spiritual realm, of course, when I was a kid, that really wasn't in my radar. So I was a sports guy, I'm a baseball guy. Guys like Pete Rose and Johnny Bench, they were in their heyday when I was a kid. So they were my sports heroes. Music heroes, I grew up with the Beatles, so they were my musical heroes. But then when I got into the junior high school years, and I was visiting churches from time to time and participating in youth group things occasionally, there was a youth pastor, and his name still is Bob Henry, and he was just a great example to me of having just a selfless human being. And he wound up being our minister, our pastor, when my wife and I got married. And one of the things that attracted me to him was his selflessness. He was very giving of not only his time, but his attention, of course, his finances, and just his energy, and his conversations were always directed to the other person.
Yeah.
So there's something about giving and sacrifice that's attractive to everybody.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't realize that's a very Christ-like feature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that is what's preached. I mean, give. Yeah, just giving is a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So how did your, so we kind of touched on this a little bit, but I'm going to circle back to it. So how did your early life and childhood, like how you were raised and stuff, like affect or dictate your current worldview and profession?
Probably, as you're raised, you're highly influenced by your parents and those who are influential in your formative years when you're growing up and learning. Very loving mom, very gracious mom, who was very selfless too. She worked hard. And my biggest fan, she was very supportive. I mentioned my grandparents earlier. They were very godly people, but very loving people. So I grew up around a lot of love. And those examples were, in hindsight now especially, a big impact on kind of the way I view things now. I would like to be more that way.
Yeah.
Do you agree with the statement that obviously times were different in your era than ours? Do you think it is still the utmost importance that a child grows up in a loving home and has that love that they can fall back on? And
yeah, I don't think anybody would argue with love. That's a word that gets used quite a bit. Of course, we know that the ultimate love is Christ's love, because again, it's that sacrificial, giving kind of love. And so, sure, everybody would would agree with that. I think a child needs a loving home. And I would take that a step farther. What do you base that love on? Because a lot of times love is conditional when it's a human being. Whatever's good for me, if it's convenient for me. We like other people giving, but we don't always want to be the one to give. So that sacrifice of putting others first, and the Bible, the gospel, spells that out for us. So I would agree with that, and then I would take it a step farther, that kids need not only a loving home with two parents, of course, right? That's what we'd all love to have. Not everybody has that, and it's no fault of their own. But beyond that, a church or a spiritual upbringing that can teach you the principles of the Bible and wisdom that comes from that.
Yeah. So how did, kind of skipping forward a little bit in your lifetime, so how did you get into radio? And like more specifically, how did you find your way to Tyler and then KVNE?
I just showed up. Again, back in the day, it was a different day, and now things are very much automated, and it's very user-friendly. But when I started in 1989, it's 35 years ago, a lot of people don't realize this, but radio was in black and white. No, it wasn't really. But it was very much turntables, CDs, reel-to-reels, and it was live all the time. And you had to have somebody in the chair 24/7. So it was hard to find people that would work overnight or on the weekends. A lot of people say, yeah, I'd love to be on radio, but they didn't want to work those hours. And you had to have somebody that could do that. So I just showed up and offered to help out, volunteer, because I was always interested in radio. Had some radio heroes as well growing up. And I said, well, I'll do whatever. But inside, I really wanted to be on the air. I wanted to be have an air shift and be a host. So that's how I showed up. And it turned out they needed somebody on the weekends. And so I quickly was trained and started doing Saturdays. And I was driving in from Shreveport back in those days, so about 90 miles. And I had 4 small kids and my wife. And we stacked them in a little blue Geo Metro. The kids were stackable back then. We put them in there, and that hour and a half drive to Tyler every Saturday. And within a few months, an opening came for a full-time gig, and I was offered that. And I had to pray about it because it was a lot less money that I was making at General Motors, a big corporation with benefits and retirement and everything. And KVNE was not as big as it is now, just in terms of size and resources. So it was a considerable cut in pay. So I had to pray about it. And I was a pretty new Christian at the time, maybe a couple of years. And I had heard that you're supposed to go in your closet and pray. So I took that literally. I went into a closet and I sat down in the dark and I prayed, and my mind wandered, and I prayed and my mind wandered. And after about an hour, I said, okay, this is as far as I can go. But I knew it's what I wanted to do, and I was feeling confident that the Lord was giving me, go for it. I've given you some gifts. I've given you this opportunity. Jump out and trust, and see what I can do through you. And so one of the things I also knew, even as a young Christian, is that you should talk to your wife about things. You should talk to your spouse about big decisions. So I need to talk to Lois. And so I approached her with it, and she knew, we were talking about it. I said, I think I really want to do this. And I said, what do you think? And she said, go. And I said, well, it's a lot less money. She said, go. I said, well, the kids are going to have to change school. She says, why are you trying to change my mind? So
when your wife says go, you take it, right?
Yeah, I know that now. And when she said go, finally the third time, I don't know if you ever saw the first Rocky movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when he and his wife is in a coma, and he's by her bedside the whole time, and he's got this big fight coming up. He says, I ain't going to go fight no more. I'm going to be right here with you. And he's just praying, and he's sitting by her side 24/7. And she finally wakes up, and she pulls him in close. You remember? Mm-hmm. And she says, there's just one thing I want you to do for me. Win. And he goes, and his boss, his manager says, oh, what are we waiting for? And they take off running. That's when the running scenes start. Dun, 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 dun. That was me running from from Shreveport to Tyler to start working at KVNE full time. So that's the long story.
The LP Podcast would like to thank its sponsor, Tyndal Livestock.
Owner and operator of Tyndal Livestock is Brady and Michaela Tyndall. You can always reach them at 903-286-8478, and if that don't work, you got 903-477-1656.
Tyndal Livestock is a family-owned and operated ranch in Eustis and Athens, Texas. They are currently running over 300 head of cattle between the two families. They raise registered gray and red Brahman, registered F1s, golden certified, and commercial cattle. They buy, sell, and lease livestock of all varieties. They currently have 2 lease heifers being shown in Henderson County. They are proud to help the next generation of livestock showmen. Keep Tyndal Livestock in mind for your next herd bull, cow, or heifer. They can't wait to hear from you. Be sure to follow them at Facebook at Tyndal Livestock for more information, and you can always reach them at 903-286-8478 or 903-477-1656.
So I'm sure we have some people in the audience that are interested, and I'm interested myself. So how does it work? Like being on the radio, how do you choose songs? Like how does that work?
Yeah, it's quite a process, and it's a good question. Christian radio is an industry, and so there are labels like Word Records and Curb Records. They've got all these record labels, and artists get signed to those labels. So these are the songs that are getting distributed to the country. And we kind of adhere to that simply because we know there's going to be a certain amount of quality that's built right into that. Sometimes we'll get somebody with a guitar and send us an MP3, and they might sound pretty good. But we're not always sure they're going to sound that good. So just for quality purposes, we reserve it just for those that are signed to a label. And even with that, we get a lot of songs, hundreds of songs a week maybe. I'm not the music director, but I work with the music team, and I know that there are a lot of songs. And then our music director breaks those down into the ones that are doing well across the country. We look at charts and see how things are being received. We do things called audience testing. We have people come into the studio, we play them a clip of a song, maybe 10 seconds of the hook, kind of the main part of the song, the chorus maybe. Let them listen to it and give us a rating, 1 through 5, just say. And listeners who come in, who are invited to do that or sign up to do it, they give it a rating, so that counts. We also have online testing. If anybody can go to KVNE.com and register to be on our music team and send us your votes and the songs that you like. So that makes, all to say, the testing is a big part of it. Also, what's testing well in other markets. If it's doing well in Chicago, if it's doing well in Dallas, if it's doing well in other major stations. If it's working for somebody else, it might work for us.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into it. We look at the lyrics. We make sure it's not saying something that's we're not really comfortable with, or maybe it's a little bit off base or could be construed that way. Yeah. But most of them, I'd say 99% of them are fine. They're encouraging. They're pointing you to Jesus. The Lord is the main focus, or something that is family origin that has the Lord as the basis for that family relationship.
Yeah.
But every song stands on its own. It's a process. We have fun, but it takes a while to listen to all those songs and to decide who's going to go on. And then we got a rotation. There's maybe 300 songs, maybe not even that. I'm kind of forgetting now. Between 200 and 300 songs are on a regular rotation. And within that rotation, there are heavy rotation. You're going to hear those songs every 3 to 4 hours. And maybe if you listen a long time, you think, why are they playing that song again? That's because we got to keep that thing in there to get it recognizable, because whether people realize it or not, we like songs that we recognize. If you go to see a concert and Chris Tomlin doesn't play How Great Is Our God, you might be disappointed, or just pick a song. And he may be tired of playing that song, but people want to hear that song. Same way with the radio. People want to hear the songs they're familiar with. And the way you get those familiarized is to
just keep playing it.
You got to keep playing it. And then after a while, it'll go down the list. It won't be played quite as frequently. And with time, some of those songs drop off the list, and we bring in the new ones. And so it's quite a system. I'm glad I don't have to keep up with this because it's like algebra. It's a bit of a.
So it's a lot harder process than having to just plug into your phone and press shuffle. There's kind of a science to it.
Yeah, because everybody's different, and there's no way that everybody will like every song, obviously.
Right.
So that's why we look at audience testing and see what most people like, and we try to hit the broad base. It's broadcasting, so we kind of have a target, and it's geared toward adults, because kids don't listen to radio, by and large, and they don't give to radio by and large. So we had to find an audience. So we tried to do there used to be an old guy named Orville Redenbacher. He was a popcorn guy, and he had the slogan, "We do one thing and we do it right." So we're trying to do one thing and trying to point to one audience and point to one Jesus and do it well.
Yeah.
Amen. So in your radio career, obviously you've done big and small events like this. What are some of the events that pop out to you that kind of hit you in the soul a little bit and like, wow, that was impactful?
Yeah, events in artists, certain ones that you really admire and look forward to meeting, those kind of things. Like if you get to be a part of a Toby Mac concert, that's pretty fun. He puts on the show. He's got the gospel. He brings the presentation, and he also brings the fun and the action and the effects and all the things that make it fun. We had a thing here a few years back called City Fest, and Newsboys were a part of that, and a lot of other groups. And that was downtown Tyler. It was just a huge outdoor event, and our station got to be down there on the square, Tyler, with live remote equipment and broadcasting live. Got to meet a lot of interesting people. That's probably the biggest part of it, is just the interesting people that we get to meet, like you guys. It's fun to meet new people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because, you just get to branch out, and you can use your celebrity for that. Because around here, you're for sure a local celebrity, and you can use that, meet new people.
That's very nice. I don't like to say that, but if you say it, that makes it. I always tell people you may need to set your goal a little bit higher, but thank you for that. It's very gracious.
This podcast is brought to you by Osmosis Nail and Spa in Athens, Texas. Are you ready to hear about this, honey?
Yes, girl.
Trying to get my nails done after hearing about this.
Mm-hmm.
Ready to relax, rejuvenate, and refresh your look? Osmosis Nail Salon is here to make it happen. With a full range of professional nail and waxing services,
okay,
you'll experience top-tier pampering from their experienced and friendly staff who prioritize your comfort and your looks.
Mm-hmm. As it should.
Mm-hmm. I meant style. Step into a world full of relaxation,
okay,
and leave feeling your best.
Yeah.
Book your appointment today by calling 903-288-2647. 903-288-2647. Osmosis Nail Salon in Athens, Texas.
You had been in another profession altogether. If you hadn't joined the radio station, what would it be?
I'd probably be a cartoonist, maybe a writer.
Like an artist. All right.
Yeah. I do like to write, sometimes devotional things, sometimes comedy. I find it very therapeutic. So, and then of course drums. I probably should have said that first, but because I do that on the side right now. But if I had something else, I would probably be writing.
So you like the creative side of things?
Yeah, I can't organize a thing, but I can. I do like music and art and the written word.
So you've met lots of artists and influencers throughout your career. What are some that stand out to you?
I got to go to Amy Grant's house. There was a whole bunch of us in radio. It's about maybe 10 years ago now. And of course she's kind of legendary now. She's not really on the radio anymore, but she still tours. And her husband, his name just flew my mind. What was that?
Manseguil?
Oh, Vince Gill.
Vince
Yeah,
Gill.
that's right. Thank you. So we went to Vince and Amy's house, and had dinner and got, see his wall of guitars and stuff. That was pretty big. And I mentioned Toby Mac and Mac Powell. Got to do an event with him recently where he came. It was my 35th anniversary at the radio station. They brought Mac Powell in from Third Day.
Yeah.
And I got to play a cajon, it's the drum, and he played his songs on his acoustic guitar down at the Liberty Theater in Tyler.
Wow,
Man,
That was really cool.
the back of my head just blew right off. I couldn't believe I was there. It was pretty cool. So very blessed to be a part of all that, and the folks at the radio station, they're just quality people. They love the Lord, and they exude Jesus a lot better than I do a lot of times, and I really appreciate that environment, to be around a bunch of people who working shoulder to shoulder to promote Jesus and trying to exemplify him and shine a light. And the station's just been blessed more and more. I mean, I've never seen how God has used a place like this one and continues to bless it and grow it. And we've got stations all around the region now, so and it's continuing to grow. I just keep showing up and trying not to mess it up, trying not to spill anything is kind of a key thing for me. It's a big thank you to the Lord for that.
Yeah. So we have a game we do with all our guests, just kind of jump into it. So last season, the audience might recognize it as we called it the Fast Five, but this year it's called the Quick Draw game. So we're going to ask you 5 questions in quick succession.
Okay.
Right?
All right. Is there any theme music with this?
We should get some theme music. Yeah, we need to get some theme music. Yeah, just have the theme music going in the background.
All right, it's time for
the Fast Five or the Quick Draw game. Okay,
right.
so we're gonna ask you 5 questions real quick, then just give us an answer. If you want to give us a story, give us a story.
Okay. All right.
So, your favorite music artist and why?
Paul McCartney. He was part of the Beatles. He's the most prolific, profound music artist in my lifetime.
Okay. What is the favorite moment you've had on stage or musician moment?
Probably that Mac Powell moment, and it's
Mac
fresh on my
Powell.
brain,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to actually perform with him and share his songs, with a group of about 300 people.
What is your favorite all-time sports moment?
The Reds World Series, 1976, when they swept the Yankees. Yes! Followed quickly by the 1990 Reds when they swept the A's. Yes!
Okay. And then what's your favorite moment in your life, professionally or personally?
Accepting Jesus is the proper answer to that one. And then beyond that, marrying my lovely wife and life partner, Lois. And then the birth of my children, and then my grandchildren. Wow. You want to talk about a mind-blowing moment is when you get grandkids. Someday. Grandkids, man, it changes everything.
All right, Brynlee, you want to take this last one?
Sure. What's your favorite moderate speed burger?
So like Whataburger, In-N-Out, Five Guys, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I do love a Five Guys. I don't get there very often, but I think I think about it for a second. I know it's supposed to be fast, semi-fast. Juicy's, that seems to be my go-to.
That
Juicy's has a bomb burger. I love
We got a
my
lot of
Juicy's
amens.
burger.
yeah.
Yeah.
And last question, and we ask this for all of our guests. What is your mission in life?
It has turned into promoting Jesus in that whole selfless characteristic that I described earlier. Because a lot of us love the idea of Jesus and love Jesus even. But when it comes to actually applying what Jesus did and acting like he did and saying what he said as disciples is to emulate him. And it was so countercultural. Forgive our enemies.
That's a hard thing
we
to do.
say we agree with it, but boy, when it comes time to doing it, right? To give of our time and our talent and our resources, it's hard to do. So I want to emulate that. And you're right. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's a good goal.
Well, and I think that's pretty much it. Brynlee, Colton, y'all have any more questions y'all want to ask? Nope. All right. Well, this concludes episode something like 3 or 4 of
I
the
lost count.
LP podcast.
Roll
with
the credits.
Mike Harper. Yep. Roll the credits. We'll see y'all next time.
Thank you.
All right.
Don't forget, like and subscribe.